maybe just before the Vamps went crazy, it would be wake up, okay, can I get to the gym within the next like hour and a half or whatever? Or at any point today, if the answer's yes, great, carry on. And then I'd have my protein powder with porridge oats and water, because it's funny, I thought that the irony with this as well, like I thought that adding milk to porridge would make me like fat, but then like whey protein is like from milk, right? So so that was like the warped kind of sense of rationality with that. And then it would be chicken breasts with nothing else, like 2 or 3 of them twice a day. It would be no ketchup, stuff like that, like just really extreme eating. And then if I woke, and throughout that it would still be a constant thing of like just thinking about choices with food, thinking about if I had to eat, like I have like memories of filming with the Vamps in the early days where we'd be in America doing like a Chicago deep dish like challenge for a YouTube channel, and like I'd eat it and then I'd hate the fact I'd eaten it, and then I think it started shifting a little bit more when we were touring, and I was like consciously determining where we could or couldn't eat. Like we had like a big touring party, maybe like 15, 16 people, and I'd be like, and it's before I was vegetarian, so all I would eat was chicken, like genuinely all I would eat is chicken. Not like seasoned chicken, just plain chicken and broccoli or whatever. So if we'd be in the middle of nowhere in America and we go to a restaurant and all they had was like, I don't know, like pizza, I'd be like, we can't eat here. And then if that was paired with not being able to go to the gym, I was just not a very nice person really. And it took me a long time to accept that I'd become quite controlling in that way. And again, the irony with it is I was like, if I couldn't eat the certain foods that I wanted to, I would buy loads of like protein bars that are like packed with artificial sugar and you know, chocolate and stuff, especially in America. So like it just shows that I didn't really have like a rational approach to any of these things. It was just confusing time where I think I was trying to claw back a sense of control in my life, but at the expense of my relationships with people around me and my relationship with myself, I think.
What did your bandmates say, particularly when you say we can't eat here?
Yeah.
There's such a structure around your eating. Did it sort of impinge upon sort of touring and sort of daily life?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. I mean, to be fair to them, they were like so good with like managing the situation. I think because I already had these things when we met, you know, because these tendencies started probably age 15, and I met Brad when I was 18. I was always known as like the athletic one out of the group. Like people just in the band knew that I'd be like going to the gym or whatever. So I don't think they realised. I think the thing with this, which I've noticed, is it was like increase. It wasn't just like one day I woke up and I was like, I'm going to be really into the gym. It was like a very, very gradual, regression really. And I think, you know, that they were very sympathetic to it. I think now looking back, we realised that I was like in a bit of a weird place with it. But back then, you know, I'm the oldest in the band. So Connor was like 15, and Brad was 17, Tristan's my age. But we were like young guys like touring the world. And I think it was quite easy for us to just like get swept up in the craziness. And they probably didn't realise how severe it was. But I think looking back now, we acknowledge that it was, quite difficult, but they're very diplomatic boys, so that we never had arguments about it. But I think if it was me going back there to that moment as like third person, I think I'd be really annoyed with me because I wasn't a good person to be around most of the time.
You mentioned earlier about how you didn't realise you had a problem. When did you realise?
I think getting older like helped anyway, but really meeting my wife was quite a big thing because I couldn't live like selfishly anymore. You know, I was very lucky with the start of the Vamps where things were going really well, and I was effectively living kind of in like hotels around the world and could do what I want, eat what I want and whatever. And then all of a sudden I met my wife and it was like, okay, we need to like go out for dinner and stuff. And I was like, well, how am I going to get boiled chicken at like a Hakkasan? Like, you just don't really do that, right? And I was really trying to impress her as well. So I wanted to take us to these nice places and do stuff. And I think it just sort of, it was almost like this ultimatum that wasn't really like, you know, she didn't give me an ultimatum. It was just an obvious ultimatum. Either I need to like sort this stuff out, or it's not, I'm not going to be able to build a relationship with this person. And I think with the Vamps, I'd like, trick myself into thinking it was just this equilibrium where I could do what I want and they'd be fine. But when you're introducing someone brand new into the scenario, when I was like so far down this path, it just wasn't going to work. It would be quite abrasive. It coincided actually at the time that I had my liposuction, and up until about 3 years ago, which is crazy. I can't believe she didn't think this. So like when we met, I had to wear this like really tight thing for like 3 weeks or whatever after the surgery. She thought I'd had breast enlargement until a couple of years ago. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, it was just funny. So for her, it must have been very weird meeting me and within like a few months realised that I'd had this like procedure. So I think she knew that there was like issues, but it's taken a long time to get through it. And she's brilliant at just kind of...
Did she sit you down and try and talk through these issues with you?
Yeah, she absolutely would now. I mean, I've just been lucky that over the years and actually doing more stuff like this and, you know, always been quite honest about mental health. Even like doing I'm a Celeb, like, made me realise, because I'd never really I hadn't spoken about liposuction until after that. Like, and I realised that every so often I need to speak about this stuff publicly, because if I don't, which is a really weird thing, but for me, like, I need to speak about it publicly because then I force myself to like address issues. So when the pandemic happened, it was just like everything cut and it's horrible. And then I started like spiraling into this position of being like, oh, like I'm doomed, my career could potentially be over, and it was quite testing. So I think depression's an interesting thing that I definitely relate to. And those feelings of uncertainty paired with an increase in, by drinking a lot of alcohol and like cannabis consumption, it was getting really pretty intense, like daily stuff. And
this was during the pandemic?
Yeah. I think, And I think in the early days of the pandemic when everyone was working from home and stuff, I think it was like, it started probably off as me playing on the PlayStation with my mates on the headsets, and it was really nice. And then it would all of a sudden be like, oh, let's have a drink. And then before realising it was like kind of every day pretty much wanting to do that and smoking and stuff. And I think I just got to a point where I sort of lost a sense of direction, and I became quite unreachable to people close to me. And that's why, and like the EP is kind of my... Like, so I've got a song, Dancing on the Head of a Needle, which is the first song I released, and that's like me looking back to that like real dark time and being like, I'm sorry for the person I was in that time. So I've got the body I feel like I'm just listing off like things I've got here, but like body dysmorphia is one thing, but this sort of like relationship with my mental health and like depression is another thing. And I think now I'm in a much better place. I decided to sort of seek help for the feeling low thing. And I think it was like one really like impactful thing that our bass player said to me actually was, because he really just doesn't like weed at all, and you know he's really sort of like against it, and I think he said something like, why do you smoke weed? And I was like, oh, I love it because like it just like makes time just like go fast, and I can just like relax for the whole evening. And he's like, it's really sad that you're smoking weed because you want time to go faster. And like at the time I sort of laughed it off, but that's something that's really stayed with me because that is sad. Like I lost a couple of people in the pandemic, not from COVID, but from other things. Like, and the thought of me actively wanting to speed up time whilst loved ones around me have not had enough time is like, was really sad. So cutting that out really helped. And I think my wife sort of realised that I was having like prolonged periods of feeling low and not really wanting to like get up and do stuff. And again, it's really awkward to say this stuff because like my parents were so upset about hearing this sort of stuff, but it was just difficult, and I sought help with it. And I think there was like a chemical imbalance, and I think cutting the weed really helped. I don't really do that anymore. I've not really spoken about it, but I sort of embarrassed myself. So I went for a Sunday roast in Kew actually, with our drummer and two other people, two friends, one I hadn't seen in 10 years. So we went to this pub, and I, you know, I'd only had a couple of drinks, but I was smoking, and I kind of like like passed out, and like, you know, it can happen, I guess, from time to time with people, you know, like, but it really caught me off guard, and I think it must go back to the control thing, where it's like, you know, fainting at 4 o'clock on a Sunday, really nice, like quite warm October, people sat outside having a roast, and here's me getting dragged into a car by and like Tristan was like so good, like really sorted me out, sat with me for hours, and it was my wife, she was out at like an event or something, like a friend's birthday, and she got a call at 5 o'clock from Tristan being like, James is like crying and like just like all over the place, and it was like a real moment. I was like, I'm nearly 30, I've just like fainted in front of loads of people eating Sunday roast with their family. I look like an absolute mess, like what am I doing? And that was then, and that kind of coincided with this period of depression, I think, and it was kind of what I needed to really kind of break that cycle. And you know, the fact I'd not seen one of those guys there for like 10 years, and all of a sudden I was like on the floor. I was like, it's so not me. Well, I didn't think it was. So that's kind of what happened there, and from there I sort of sought help with like the depression side of things. The weed stopped. Didn't drink for like a month or so. So yeah, it was
a moment then, wasn't it?
It was like, and like my parents don't really know about that, but I think I needed it, and now that's why, like with 2 of these songs on the EP, they go back to that moment. So I've got a song Dancing on the Heaven Needle, and then I've got a song Dance or Die, which is the last song on the EP, which was like written right in that moment of feeling like some days I want to, like, I feel amazing, I want to dance, and another days I want to die, I feel like rubbish. So I'm, in a weird way, I'm like grateful for that period, because like the EP is all about learning, and I feel like I've done it. Like you get to a certain age and you just think the learning's kind of done, and you're like, I kind of know how I tick and that's it. But for me, that October and the year since then has been like a real period of self-reflection and learning for me. So I'm grateful for that weird thing, because I know that I never want to be like that again. And that's not to say I won't like enjoy myself from time to time or never smoke weed again or whatever, but I really don't want that to be part of my character anymore. I think the biggest thing for me was seeing a GP actually about depression and just being put on antidepressants, which I'd never been on before. And I think I had a bit of a I don't know, I don't know how to say it, but I never saw that as an option. I was like, I don't know, like I don't know if that's for me. And that's why I keep on saying I actually do think there's like a chemical imbalance for me, because it's like night and day now. Like I don't have those big thoughts anymore, those like spiraling things. And I think, you know, cutting the weed's one thing, but sometimes acknowledging that it's like, I didn't feel like I had the tools within myself to sort of like get me through the next stage at that point. And speaking to the GP, obviously speaking to my wife continuously, speaking to the other Vamps boys, like I had a really good chat with Brad, our singer in Cornwall, when we were working on a Christmas song last year, and I sort of like, I think my wife sort of nudged me to speak to him about it, because I felt a bit awkward. It was just how I was feeling. And I think time and time again, every time I go through something, speaking to the people that are closest to me is so important. I know that's like a bit of a cliche thing to say, but just having a conversation really helps, and it also helps me process it myself as well. So yeah, there's a few factors that really help.
It sounds like you've been through a real tough time.
Yeah, but I'm happier for it though now. Like it's good. Like I never felt necessarily like, I don't know. It did feel pretty low, but I think now looking back, it was much worse than I thought it was at the time.
Really?
Because I'd become numb to the whole like low feeling of just being like, it's fine, I don't really care. But now looking back, I'm like, for God's sake. And especially, you know, like I said before, with some of my friends losing like really close like family members and stuff, like I view life so differently now as something that, like, again, it sounds cliche, but a very precious thing, and time is the most valuable thing for me now. So that's why I'm much happier that I've got this new perspective on how I conduct myself and with my mental health, and I'm conscious to not stray too far from where I am now mentally, because I know that it's within me to like, or it was definitely within me before, to like spiral into darker places.